What's up, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday. We're making a turn already on this week. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com. Stream it up over there. You got your Google and Alexa home devices, the app, video stream, up and rolling Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're already up and at it on this fine Wednesday morning, appreciate you tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. What do we got on the good old game plan for us this morning? Lots to get to here. Busy kind of afternoon, evening. First up, Bucks picking up a win last night. Kind of felt like a playoff game between them and the Heat because, well, in-season tournament play starting next week. This game kind of decided whether your Bucks would be in it. Point differentials, would they be on the road? Well, Bucks took care of business. They won it, so they are the top seed in the Eastern Conference and will host the New York Knicks next Tuesday. So again, kind of I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if I quite understand all the rules and playing. I just know following along a little bit online, point differential was a big one there too. But nonetheless, Bucks are the one seed. They will take on the Knicks. They host the Knicks. It'll be next Tuesday. It was announced. So for planning purposes, on there, I'm just kind of looking a little bit here, but so they're the one seed. The two seed is the Pacers. The three seed is the Celtics. That's the Eastern Conference portion. Western Conference, the one seed is the Lakers. They take on the four seed Suns. The two seed Kings taking on the three seeded Pelicans. Yeah, I know. Kind of weird. It's like, huh? What? But T Wolves are top seed in the West, and yeah, in season tournament, pool plays, all that stuff factoring into it. So just it's kind of all over the place. It's all over the place. Bucks will host the Knicks on the 5th at 6:30 p.m. 6:30 p.m. So plan accordingly. But last night, Giannis, 33 points, 10 rebounds, another double-double for the Greek Freak. Damian Lillard, 32 points, 9 assists. Chris Middleton did play in the game last night. Played 23 minutes, some big-time threes at the end of the game there, some clutch shooting from him, 17 points, 8 rebounds. It was a big night for Chris Middleton. Good to see that performance from Middleton last night. And they needed it because Bucks were in a little bit of foul trouble, injuries. Pat Connaughton, sprained ankle. No word on how long he's going to be out. But Bucks didn't get a ton of production coming off their bench. Bobby Portis 6, Pat had 7. Andre Jackson Jr. with a couple big threes, including a bank three on there. Although I don't think he called it, so probably shouldn't have counted. But 6 points for the rookie coming off the bench there too. So, but Bucks getting it done, and we'll have the play-in tournament next week. Still got a game with the Bulls and such beforehand, but I saw a couple of you. One of you, Jake, one of our listeners, Jake, had sent a message because remember at the beginning of the year, kind of talked about, are you into this in-season tournament? Do you like the idea? A lot of you are like, I'm willing to kind of let it see how it plays out and that sort of thing. And for me, it was felt like a playoff game last night, but did it really move the needle for me to get hyped up before the game? I don't know. Not, I guess for me, not, but not to say that everybody was like that. Our good buddy Jake said, all right, I was wrong about the in-season tournament. It's a win for the casual and hardcore fans alike. Watch part of the Bucks game and then the full Warriors Kings game, playoff atmosphere and players giving their all until the horn goes off. And I know Damian Lillard kind of talked about, they're taking it serious too, uh, because it sounds like he wants to, for some of the money that they're getting to help out some of the other players, two-way contract players, and that sort of thing. So, what else are we gonna talk about? Baseball. Some interesting news about the Brewers yesterday. In case you missed it, it came down in the afternoon. Ken Rosenthal from The Athletic reporting that the Brewers and their top prospect, Jackson Chourio, have had talks about a record-setting contract extension. And if you would be like, but the guy hasn't played AAA or Major League, you'd be correct. You'd be correct. But that's apparently the rumblings out there, according to Ken Rosenthal. Parameters being discussed would set a record for a player already under club control who has yet to play in the major leagues. To date, there have only been 5 such signings. White Sox have uh, done a couple of them over the last couple of years. Lewis Robert Jr., Jimenez, and such. And the biggest one is a 6-year, $50 million deal. So if it's record setting, it's going to be bigger than a 6-year, $50 million deal. Um, Interesting in the note in the fact that an extension could clear a path for Cheerio to make the opening day roster. Uh, could clear a path to either an early call up once he logs additional AAA time. Couple different scenarios over here, as Adam McCulvey noted too. When that report came out, Adam McCulvey, who covers the Brewers for Brewers.com, as he noted in part of the article, was that let me bring it up here so I quote him correctly here. But it kind of seems like it potentially would clear that path for him to be on the opening day roster. Yeah, it says from the story, if he agrees to a deal, if Jackson Churio agrees to a deal, it would remove service time as a consideration for the Brewers in their decision on when to promote him and likely ensure his place in their opening day lineup. All right. So the next question would be, what does this mean? Does this kind of give us an idea of what the Brewers' plans are going to be this offseason? We're about a week away from the infamous winter meetings where a lot of signings, trades go down. Could this potentially mean if the Brewers are going to go a little bit younger, could this indicate that the Brewers might move on from Corbin Burns, Willie Adames, et cetera, and kind of start that quote rebuild process? That's some of the thinking out there. And then, you got Jackson coming up. You got a plethora of outfield depth with Yelly, Sal, Weimer, Mitchell. You had Jackson, that's 5. Now, could Yelich be a DH? Maybe move over to first base, potentially over there. I'd have to imagine the Brewers probably would be moving on from, I don't think it would be Sal Frelick, but maybe Joey Weimer or Garrett Mitchell. So, I the other part in this thing too, let's use 6 years and 60 million. I don't know if that's the number, but if it's going to be a record, it's got to be more than the 6 years, $50 million that Robert Jr. signed with the White Sox back in 2020. So let's just say 6 years, 60 million, whatever the case may be. To me, you do that for a couple reasons, but one of them it's similar to trying to take advantage of, like, in the NFL, rookie quarterback. The Patrick Mahomes before he signed that big extension. You're paying a rookie quarterback. You build around him with a lot of money, with a lot of other paid players. You're taking advantage of, not paying a quarterback a bunch of money. Bears tried doing that with Trubisky when they brought in Khalil Mack and all that, et cetera, et cetera. So while I understand the notion of, or the idea of, if you go younger or you give Jackson Cheerio this type of deal, you're kind of ushering in the new wave of younger players. But I almost feel like too, if you do that and you bring him up and you got him under a quote unquote cheaper deal because you're assuming that he's going to outplay that at some point and probably after a few years sign a mega deal maybe somewhere else. Wouldn't you still want to have a really good team around you, not necessarily go on a full rebuild? Because if you're signing Cheerio to a deal like a 6 year, $60 million, and you decide to, hey, we're going to go on a full on rebuild, we're going to go all young, where the first couple years are going to be a wash, then are you really taking advantage of that contract? You know what I mean? Like, I almost still feel like, okay, if you're going to sign Cheerio to this type of deal, if you're going to sign him to this type of deal, you'd still want to you still want to have players that could contribute right away, good players that could contribute right away, and try to take advantage of this contract. You know, the Brewers did it with Freddie Peralta, signed him to a long-term deal. He probably outplayed it. They did it with Aaron Ashby last year, and he got hurt. We didn't really, they're high on him too. I don't know. It's you could go both ways. I feel like on this thing. But for you, does it tell you anything? Does it tell you anything, in your opinion, on what the Brewers' plans are going to be? What do you make of that report that he already before playing in being a regular player in Triple A, before being a regular player in Triple A, you got a little bit there, but you good with that? Because a lot of you wanted to see Jackson Cheerio last year. Would you be good if he kind of like, no, going to the major leagues right away? Would you be good with giving him a record deal for a guy that we haven't seen a whole lot of yet, in AAA or even in the big leagues? Start to hit me up with some texts on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Also, perfect timing too, because we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but didn't take too long for Braylon Allen to make his announcement. He will be going to the NFL draft. Announced it on social media yesterday that he will be declaring for the NFL draft, for the upcoming draft here. So, no big surprise over there. Didn't take him long. Obviously, this was a decision probably that was decided a while ago, way before that, before the Axe game there. But I'll kind of say what I said again yesterday. I still think he's going to be an intriguing draft prospect. I saw was it Dwayne Bugler that has him as a top 100 player right now, and I mean we're in end of November, plenty of time to climb up there. But I'm going to be really curious to see how teams value his age right now, like how they really value his age. He's going to be 20 in January. He plays that running back position where a lot of teams already kind of devalue it. But because he is younger than most running backs coming into the league, does that raise his stock a little bit more? And the other part of it is like, well, he also played for Wisconsin, so he's got 3 years of wear and tear on that body. So, I mean, you could go a couple different ways on this thing. I think he's going to be a very intriguing um, draft prospect when we get to that. It's coming up in the early part of next year. So Packers will be back at practice today too, as they get set to take on the Chiefs for Sunday night football. We'll throw a little football talk in here as well, but we got stock reports are due. Hit us up with whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling. Let us know. Tweet it, Facebook it, text it, all that good stuff. Play along with us. But let's get things going here this morning. I want to talk a little bit more about this Brewers report about the Brewers potentially signing Jackson Cheerio to an already record contract. To an already record contract. What are your thoughts on that when you hear that? Do you like the move? Do you like that they're being maybe a little bit aggressive right away? Maybe trying to the other part of this, if when they call them up, you get the whole arbitration thing, and numbers wise, maybe they view it as this is a cheaper option, and instead of when we get into a couple years, this deal will still be cheaper than what we will have to do when we get to arbitration in a couple years. I'm sure that is part of the thinking with this. But what are your thoughts on this? All right, let's talk about it, especially with winter meetings coming up here, where potentially a lot of moves could be made. Take our first break, and we'll get things going here this morning. Start to hit me up with some texts, 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line. We'll be back to get things rolling in just a few minutes. Trying out something new, little fun coming up here. Uh, Last night, if you follow along on our Facebook page, there we created a group called Man Cave Conversations. But that way, it's just a way for us to kind of continue the conversation. I enjoy chatting with you all, and only get to do it a few hours every week. So we got that group we created. The link is up on my Facebook page. Just look it up, facebook.com/, Casper Sports, Casper with a K, and you can join the group over there. Just posts. It's a way to post some questions, post some conversations, chat with other listeners, and all that good stuff. Post some polls or whatever have you. The only thing I ask is no politics and just no attacking other people for their opinions and such. So, but we already got some conversations flowing on there. But I would love for you to join up. That way we can talk even when we're off the air, and that way I can give you some credit too. I'm going to use it to give you some shout outs on the air, and especially on the podcast. And some of you maybe even give me some ideas for some topics for some future episodes. So join that group if you don't mind. It's up on our Facebook on the Facebook page. You can look it up. Otherwise, go to my page. I've got that link I posted up last night, and then just request to join because it is a private group. I don't, that way we our own little our own little private group here, but I'll approve you or somebody will approve you, and we'll get you on there too. So, but got one or one thread that's going on already with a few of you chiming in there. C-Bomb put up, can we get a final count on the record from the listeners for the Packers? I'm sticking to my preseason win total of 9. Steven said 9 would be fantastic. I think 10 could be a real possibility, I hope. Jordan said I had to go look for it, but I posted on Twitter in September that they were a 10-7 team at best. Seems to be holding pretty true so far. I think 8 or 9 is more realistic at this point. Jake said I would be happy with an improving team and 9 wins. Tony saying I had hopes of finishing around 500 this season. Now I'm pretty confident they could go 10-7 and in contention for the 7th seed. So, all right, keep those coming. Love for you to join up over there. Let's get things going here this morning. Josh, that's exactly where we're going. That's where we led things off here this morning about the Jackson Cheerio thing. So, already kind of hit it up, but we're going to hit it up again here this morning. The news about Ken Rosenthal from the Athletic, who reported yesterday afternoon that the Brewers and Jackson Cheerio potentially talking about a record deal, a record contract extension. The deal, according to Ken Rosenthal, the deal for Cheerio, who has played only 6 games above Double-A, would establish a new standard for players with zero major league experience who are already under team control. Signing a top prospect to his, according to MLB.com, signing a top prospect to a historic deal is notable in itself, but it could also alter the direction the Brewers go this offseason. As Rosenthal says, this type of deal would remove any service time considerations and could lead to Cheerio being in the majors at the beginning of next year. In addition, it would also create kind of a log jam, as we mentioned at the beginning of the hour here, with that outfield depth. When you got Sal Frelick, you got Joey Weimer, you've got Garrett Mitchell, Yelly's over there too. Obviously, with the DH, it could come into play maybe for somebody like Yelich. I know others have talked about Yelich possible move to first base maybe in the future there. But you'd have to imagine at least maybe one of those youngsters would be on the move if you elevate a guy like Jackson Cheerio there. But also with this move, there's the question about, could this signal a plan or what the Brewers are thinking for this year? There's 2 scenarios in play. One, it could kind of signal the Brewers' plan to bring in and start the youth movement. They could bring in, maybe that means you're moving on from Burns and Willie Adames, It's this is an option of using this to kind of retool the roster and maybe kind of as MLB.com noted on here, an attempt to come back strong in 2025. The other part of this is with promotion, they could use this promotion and try to make one more run in 2024 and see where things stand at the trade deadline. As I mentioned at the beginning of the hour, if you missed it, the one thing that I would kind of question here, or maybe not question, but the one thing that I was kind of pondering is like, okay, let's say you sign him. If we used, I think the record from Robert Jr. White Sox in 2020, 6 year, $50 million. So if this is going to be a record one, let's just say it's a 6 year, $60 million, whatever. But you sign Cheerio to something like that, and you do it because one, you're thinking, okay, we promote him. A couple years from now, this contract would still be cheaper than having to go to arbitration for him. So it's a win-win for us. They've done that with Freddie Peralta. They've done it with Aaron Ashby. But at the same time, if you're taking advantage of that contract, where okay, 6 years, 60 million, whatever it is, it reminds me kind of like drafting a quarterback, like the Chiefs. Okay, it's like they won a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes was under, rookie deal. Bears tried doing that with Mitchell Trubisky, trying to take it. Seahawks did with Russell Wilson. You're trying to take advantage of a rookie contract for a quarterback and building around him. I feel like if you do that for Jackson Cherry, if you're signing into this deal with the hopes that, hey, we're going to get a bargain for this guy, I'd almost feel like you still want to build around that though, because then otherwise, what's the point if this is going to be like a 3 year process of a rebuild or whatever it is? Are you almost kind of wasting a couple of years then at this point? You know what I mean? Like, I think you could go about it a couple different ways. One, could it signal the move to all younger guys and trading off Burns and Willie Adamas because they're entering their final years of arbitration? Yeah, yeah, it definitely could signal that. And then you're probably getting in prospects that, maybe might make the roster at the end of the season or in 2025, as MLB.com noted. Or you're like, okay, we believe this guy. We believe Jackson can contribute right away and he can be an elite player right away. So we're not rebuilding. We're going to bring him in. We think he can be a player right away, can be an elite player right away, and we're going to build around that guy, knowing that this type of deal will still be cheaper than any arbitration in the next few years, couple years down the road. So I don't know if I've gotten really a better idea or thought of what the Brewers' offseason plans are going to be. I don't know if this really signals either way, to be honest, at this point. And we got winter meetings coming up, the infamous winter meetings coming up in about a week or so, where you see a lot of signings and you see a lot of trades going down. Could we see the Brewers trade Burnsy or Willie Adamas that week? We could. We could. I almost still feel like though that at least for Burns' sake, I feel like we are still going to see, unless they get a deal that just absolutely completely blows them away, blows them out of the water. I still feel like Corbin is going to be a guy that's going to be on the roster to open up the season. And then we'll see how the season goes. And if the Brewers are out of it, like it's obvious that they're out of it, that it's not just working, then maybe they trade him off. When you factor in the Pat Murphy getting the job as the manager and Ricky Weeks as the associate manager, not bench coach, but associate manager, it just seems like, I don't know if I would call it a complete rebuild. It almost seems like they're really putting in some bridges and some transition pieces into this thing. Like they're setting up so, hey, we want to be competitive, yet we're going to also have an eye to the future where we're going to plan, to be still, we don't want to like mortgage the future. We don't want to mortgage the future for the now. It just seems like they've put in a lot of different bridges in place for some easy transition pieces. Murphy to Weeks. I think we all think Weeks is probably going to be the manager in the next few years. Now with this Jackson Cheerio news about a potential extension before he's even made the Major League Ball Club, they're setting up for these transition pieces. Kind of a lot like, Green Bay under the Ted Thompson era and that sort of stuff. Maybe like with, they always drafted wide receivers, but the cupboard was never bare. That to me, and I know Mark Ananasio, the owner for the Brewers, has always said he's never in favor, he's not in favor of rebuilds, complete rebuilds and that. And maybe this is where it just kind of sets it up. It sets it up to where it's not going to be a complete rebuild. You've got those transition pieces in place. Might be a little bit down, but you're still, as they probably believe, still competitive. They're not, selling off everything. Maybe that's where the things are at. They're trying to just maybe be a little bit above water. They view that they can be competitive, and then it's almost as like a play it as you go sort of thing. All right, you get to the trade deadline. It's clear that you're probably not going to make the postseason, or it's not looking good. Then you can move on from your pieces. Then you get some guys in return. If you get to that point where, hey, we're in a playoff run, all right, there you go. Roll with it. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards right now. Not a full-on rebuild, not a full-on, hey, we're all going to go young here, but a lot of transition pieces, a lot of bridges with this thing. So my gut, I think, me personally, again, I don't have any insight or, sources or anything like that, inside sources. I feel like if I had to choose, I think Willie Adames would be more likely to be traded than Corbin Burns at this point. If I had to pick between those two, I feel like Willie Adames would be the one that's most likely because, they can insert Terang over there if they wanted. Maybe Monasterio goes over to second or somebody else they bring in to play second. And then you got Tyler Black as an option at third or first if they want to bring up another youngster. But if I had to put them in order of most likely to be traded, I feel like it would be Willie Adames over Burns, unless somebody just makes an astronomical offer that you'd be almost an idiot to say no to. And Adam McCulvey posted up a piece just the other day, yesterday I believe it was. Keep him, trade him. Here are the factors in play for the Crew and Burns. The Brewers and Corbin Burns are creeping closer to a crossroads, and next week's winter meetings in Nashville should offer some clues about which path the club plans to take. Got two options, he says, if you're Milwaukee General Manager Matt Arnold. Keep Burns for the start of 2024 and see what happens. If you reach midseason and think you have a playoff caliber club, you can keep him and go for it, and you can always make him a qualifying offer and reap a prime pick in the 2025 MLB draft. But if you think it's time to reload the farm system and Burns is pitching the way you expect him to pitch, you probably hold the best available arm at the trade deadline. 2, trade Burns now while he's at the peak of his value. Really, that's the two scenarios we threw out there. One of the things, if you keep Burns, you risk the injury. Brandon Woodruff, how much are they even factoring in? Looking at look at what happened to Brandon Woodruff. They didn't offer him arbitration. He's a free agent. He potentially could come back, but they didn't get anything in return for him. Do you factor that into this? Like, oh, we don't want to, he's at his peak right now. He's healthy. Do we get something in return? Are we a little skittish because of what happened with Woody? I don't know. That's tough call. That's what every general manager in every sport has to factor into it. But for me, I think right now, I think he starts the season with the Brewers. I think that's where it's going to start off, and then we'll see how the season goes. And if it's down, he's gone by the trade deadline, and it's to the highest bidder or maybe the most desperate bidder out there. All right, let's take a quick break. What are your thoughts on the in-season tournament so far? Hoops fans, NBA fans, Bucks fans. Bucks the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Do you even care? Do you even care about that? Some of you said, hey, I actually kind of liked it. Didn't think much of it. Didn't really care. Didn't want it at the beginning of the season. But I kind of like it right now. I think those courts are ugly, to be my personal opinion on it. But regardless, well, what do you make of everything right now? What do you make of that tournament? You like it? Don't care at this point in time? Let's talk some hoops. We'll take a quick break and finish up the first hour after these quick words. What's on the menu for Christmas dinner this year? A juicy ribeye steak, maybe some pork chops, ribs, or chicken, whatever it may be, or maybe you're still looking for some ideas. Then you should make a visit to our good friends at Mike's Star Market on the west side of Eau Claire. Since 1990, Mike's Star Market has been offering the best beef, lean pork sausages, and brats, condiments, and custom spice mixes, all handmade right in their store for the freshest flavor. And what's the holidays without some sweets? Mike's also has some chocolates and now a wide variety of freeze-dried candy. So visit Mike's Star Market today at 2238 Heimstead Road in Eau Claire. G-Man, the Hall of Famer G-Man. Captain the Bucks are on fire, and I'm so glad we got Dame. Yes, Chris Middleton, huge for the Bucks last night. Now you're talking Jackson Cheerio is the right fit for the Brewers. Brewers will be in the World Series next year. We will win the trophy. P.S. The Pack will win the rest of their games this year. When Willie got hit in the head in the dugout, he has not been the right player for the Brewers since then. Let's talk some. Keep your thoughts coming on the Jackson Cheerio news out there. Hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line, 715-830-1912. I want to finish up the first hour here talking a little Bucks. The in-season tournament Bucks are the one seed in the Eastern Conference. Are you buying in? Do you like the in-season tournament sort of thing? It definitely felt like a playoff like game last night between the Bucks and the Heat. Bucks picking up the 131-124 victory. So now they get to the one seed where they will welcome the New York Knicks next Tuesday. Indiana, the 2 seed, the Celtics, the 3 seed. There's a bunch of scenarios in there. It's not, remember, there's pool plays. They were in their own little pools and that. And then you got tiebreakers with point differentials and such. So it's kind of, let's be real, let's be honest, it's kind of complicated to follow here a little bit. But we know the Bucks are the 1 seed in the East, and they will take on the Knicks before. And if they win, they advance to, Vegas for the rest of the tournament and such. But I know some people have changed their tune towards it. A couple of you already sent in messages in the early parts of the first hour saying you like it. It was better than what you thought. You talked about Jake mentioned the quality of basketball and seeing that the players kind of bought in. And I think if this is something that continues, if that's something that continues here a little bit, then yeah, I think this could be something that sticks around and maybe generates more excitement from the fans, because if the players are excited and the players take it serious and they're buying into it and they want to do this, then the fans will come. Because if the players are playing in these games and they're playing, their tails off like it is a playoff type of game, fans are going to respond. Fans are going to buy into it too. So as long as that continues, where the players buy into it and these teams buy into it, players or the fans will come. They'll come, or they'll come more, I should say, and be buying into it a little bit more. But I thought last night too, big night for Cash Money, Chris Middleton. I kind of questioned whether he was going to play. He was already on a minutes restriction with the recovering from knee surgery. Then he has the Achilles tendonitis. But he plays 23 minutes. He makes some clutch shots at the end of the game in that back and forth affair. Bucks outscoring the Heat by 11 in the fourth quarter. And he finishes with 17 points in 23 minutes, 8 rebounds too, almost a double-double in 23 minutes. That is the Chris Middleton I want to see, and I think a lot of us Bucks fans want to see. That guy making some clutch shots, essentially being the third option for this team. That's the Chris Middleton that we saw a few years ago, a couple years ago. That's the Chris Middleton we want to see going forward. Making those big-time plays, being that third option. Giannis, 33 points, 10 rebounds, doing his thing in 40 minutes. Damian Lillard, 37 minutes, 32 points, 9 assists. And it came on a night too where the Bucks didn't get hardly anything off their bench, and some of it was because Pat had to leave the game due to a sprained ankle. But seeing Chris Middleton and what he was able to do in 23 minutes, that's what I want to see from him. That's exactly what I want to see from him. Hitting those big-time shots at the end, being another reliable offensive threat towards the end of the game. It was good to see that from Cash Money last night. Next up for the Bucks, before their in-season tournament, they're going to be taking on the Bulls tomorrow night. They got the Knicks next Tuesday for your schedule planning purposes over there. But before that, they will take on the Atlanta Hawks on Saturday too. So again, I think this is an opportunity for the Bucks. We were talking about it the other day, looking at their schedule: Chicago, Atlanta, New York. We'll see who they play after that if they advance throughout the in-season tournament. Then they got Chicago again, Indiana's under, Detroit, Houston, San Antonio, Orlando, New York, Brooklyn, Cleveland, Indiana. I mean, that's your upcoming schedule into January. To me, that's an opportunity for the Bucks to rack up quite a bit of wins. We a lot of people look at that Christmas Day, around Christmas, shortly after, as kind of really focusing on the NBA and maybe seeing, okay, who are the legit teams, who are the real teams there. Christmas Day is kind of that benchmark for a lot of basketball people out there. And I think the Bucks have a heck of an opportunity to maybe go on a little bit of a run and stack some wins up. Right now, they're the second seed in the East. Boston, number 1. Orlando right behind them, though. Orlando's playing hot. Won 7 in a row right now. But, yeah, what are your thoughts on that in-season tournament? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Hit me up with some text, okay? 715-830-1912. If it continues like what we had, like games yesterday, last night, guys are buying in, it felt like a playoff type of game, I'm in. Why not? Why not? It's just, to me, as a fan though too, it is kind of complicating to follow. You almost have to have Twitter up, because there was a few writers out there and NBA people kind of constantly updating. It's like, okay, so if the Heat win between by 11 or 19 points, then these are the matchups. But if the Heat win by 20 or more points, then these are the matchups. If the Bucks just win, these are the matchups. But if the Bucks, lose by 5 points or something like that, then it was complicated. And I think that could be the downfall of this thing if it gets a little too complicating. But I get it. They have to probably, the point differential things are in there to make sure, your top players are always playing in tie-breaking scenarios and all that stuff, because they only played 4 games in the first, in the pool play and such. So, all right. We'll hit that up a little bit more coming up in later on in the program. We're going to talk some Braylon Allen declaring for the NFL draft. I don't think anybody was too surprised by that announcement yesterday. So we'll hit that up. Plus, we'll chat a little. We'll throw a little green and gold chat in there. Packers will return to practice today as they get set to take on the Kansas City Chiefs for Sunday Night Football. We'll hit that up. Don't forget, stock reports are also due. It is a Making a Turn Wednesday. So whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling? You can let us know, play along with us, make your picks for whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling. I got to narrow mine down here for a little bit for some stock risers. So still got some time. We'll make our picks coming up just past 8 o'clock here this morning. A couple more of you on the texting line saying you really enjoyed the in-season tournament. Went a little bit better than you expected. This is Dave. Dave saying that game last night emulated so much like a playoff game that if the games continue like that, I'm definitely going to be watching more hoops. So, all right. We will finish the top first hour with Morgs. Good morning.
What's a good word, Kasper?
I got nothing.
Yeah, you do. Did you hear the word of the year for last year?
No.
You haven't? Okay, so no,
Last year or this year?
don't Google. 2023
not.
word of the year. Merriam-Webster says it is. You don't have to turn the dictionary pages very far. It starts with an A.
Is it a new one?
It's not a new
Okay.
word, but it's a little bit troubling that it was the most Googled word, meaning people had to look up what it means, which says a lot for our state of the world.
Is it a noun or adjective?
Authentic.
Oh, okay.
The word of the year for 2023, according to Merriam-Webster, authentic. So, who do you think is the most authentic? I'll keep it in the sports world so we don't start divvying up listeners here. Who do you think's the most authentic player?
Giannis.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Straight up?
Mhm.
What about football? If you have to pick an authentic football player.
Current?
I'll go. Let's stretch the span. We'll pull out the timeline. Doesn't matter. Just in any era, anytime. Like I like Reggie.
Bart Starr and Peyton Manning.
Okay, so you're gonna put those two down there.
Yep.
So basketball's Giannis.
Yep.
We have Starr and Manning for football. What about
Yep.
baseball? You're thinking about authentic players, guys that have a lot of character, somebody you look up to.
Baseball. Hank Aaron.
What do you think is the hardest sport now, present day, 2023, to latch on to an authentic player in? Because I feel
NBA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's why Giannis gets so much love because
Yeah.
it is kind of one of those rarities,
Mhm.
and so
It's such a individualized sport too,
Mhm.
even though it is a team sport.
Mhm.
I think a lot more fans now follow players instead
Not
of teams.
I think you're
Yeah.
right about that.
Yeah.
And I think the opposite tends to be true for football, where you follow teams, not players as much. Obviously, if
Right.
you play fantasy or whatever, it's a little bit different. But
Mhm.
as an overarching, football tends to be a team. You know, that's your team regardless. You know, ups, downs, good, bad.
Right.
But I know more people that follow players for NBA. What about baseball? Somewhere in the middle, or do you think that's team
I think it's
versus
still team
player?
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think that's probably true.
Yep.
What about Hudson? Does he have a favorite baseball player?
He knows Christian Yelich, so it's
Okay.
probably about that
So
one,
still
I
in the
would say.
Brewers world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, he's more into the favorite basketball and football players.
What about coaches? Now, we won't go each sport. We've picked our authentic players for each sport arena, but if you had to pick like one of the best authentic coaches of all time, could be any sport across the board. Doesn't matter. Past, present.
Because authentic. Like when I hear authentic, I think, okay, that what we see is real, like really him.
Exactly. That's what I
really
think
him.
when I think authentic too.
Yeah. That's
Like
where
not an act, not a facade, not somebody throwing ego.
Yep. Oh,
That's kind of a hard one.
it's not Bill Belichick.
He's something different. I
Yep.
wouldn't say authentic. He's something, but authentic's not the word that
I
I would plant on his shoulders
I probably
necessarily.
might have to go like Mike Tomlin from Pittsburgh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That I think stands to it. He looks like a real dude
Yeah.
when he's on the sidelines.
Yep.
Like, he wants to be there. He looks like what you see is what you get kind of guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, good
That
conversation.
works.
I like that.
That's the word of the year. I got other words for you.
Second hour kicking off on this Making the Turn Wednesday. Big thanks to all of you tuning in wherever, however, you may be tuning in from. Coming up, we'll get back to some more Brewers talk with the Jackson Cheerio report about the Brewers potentially giving him a record extension already before making his major league debut. We'll hit that up. We'll get back to some more hoops talk. Bucks again will host the Knicks next Tuesday. It's not on your schedules because it's part of the in-season tournament. Bucks are the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference after defeating the Miami Heat last night. If they win, they will play the winner between the Celtics and Pacers for the right to go to the championship. We'll get back to that hoops talk coming up a little bit later on, but we start off this hour with some sports nuggets of the day. 1890, Navy defeated Army by a score of 24-0 in the very first Army-Navy football game. The game was played at West Point in New York. 1962, Major League Baseball decided to return to only one All-Star game a year, beginning in 1963. 1987 at the time, Joe Montana completed a record 22 consecutive passes. Also, same day, same year, Venice Glenn with the Chargers ran back an interception for 103 yards. It was an NFL record at that time. 1992, Jerry Rice caught his 100th NFL touchdown pass. I think that's about it. Yeah, those are just some of your sports nuggets of the day for this Tuesday morning. Catching up on a couple of messages over here. I like the idea of the Brewers signing Jackson Cheerio to a long-term deal, but I agree with you. Not quite sure if this tells us if the Brewers are going to go all young or if they're going to try to still go for it this year and decide what to do at the trading deadline for guys like Corbin Burns. Another message on Facebook. We've got I actually enjoyed the in-season tournament this year, but if that's all based off of if they can continue to get the players to buy in and have these playoff-like games like we saw last night. So a couple messages there on Facebook and such. So keep those coming. Hit us up with a text though, 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. We were talking in the first hour about the report from Ken Rosenthal about the Brewers potentially signing Jackson Cheerio to a record extension for a player who still has control from his team, hasn't made his major league debut yet. Your thoughts on that? And then the Bucks in-season tournament. What were your thoughts on the in-season tournament? Did you like it? So far, a lot of you, majority of you, if not all of you, going with positive reaction. Maybe some of you don't just give a rep and you don't really care at this point in time. So regardless, let us know. Hit us up with those texts over there. Packers will be back at practice later on today as they get set to take on the Kansas City Chiefs coming up this Sunday night. Packers not at practice yesterday. A lot of them doing some community work and such. But one note from the football world, actually the college football world, a couple of them actually. Braylon Allen declaring for the NFL draft. Didn't take long for him after that Minnesota Gophers game. 2 days, and he declares for the NFL draft. So obviously it was something that was probably decided upon a lot earlier than just after that game. But he is declaring for the NFL draft as he announced on social media yesterday. And then college football, we've got the latest college football top four. Florida State jumps back into the 4 spot. Georgia remains number 1. Michigan moved up to number 2. As we mentioned, Florida State moved in where Ohio State dropped out, and Washington is number 3. So sure looks like, which to no surprise, as we mentioned the other day, the winner between Washington and Oregon Friday nights, that winner will go into the top 4. Oregon is at number 5. Ohio State is at number 6. Texas 7, Alabama 8. To round out your top 8 over there. So should be an interesting and very entertaining weekend of games that all start Friday night for these conference championships, including that Washington and Oregon game over there. You over there? Okay, he is over there.
Yeah,
Wasn't
I'm
sure.
here.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I'm good.
That's
I'm good.
good.
All right. So,
Yeah.
any surprises with the rankings are out there? Not really. Not too much.
Not entirely. Maybe Florida State because of the quarterback situation. Like this feels like if this stays as these four, Florida, I'm not even going to bother with the Georgia-Florida State semifinal. Like 58-7, maybe or so is probably going to be the final of that game. It's going to be another classic semifinal blowout. I think Oregon would be more competitive. Heck, I think Ohio State would be more competitive. But I get it. You got to be able to win your conference championship. There's the case made that Ohio State should be lower because of their resume. But maybe Ohio State's up because, I mean, they were one touchdown away from winning that game and against Michigan. Well, then their resume would look better. I get that. But all in all, though, like nothing.
So best case
terrible.
scenario should be that Louisville beats Florida State then on Saturday.
Yeah, probably. Now, if Washington clobbers Oregon, I don't think that's going to happen. But if so, then that kind of does mean Ohio State works its way back up to number 4, presuming, Georgia wins. Not the easiest game, but presuming Georgia wins, presuming Michigan wins. Sure they're going to.
I know a lot of people. I was reading some comments on social media yesterday after it all went down. Thought Texas kind of got the shaft in the rankings because it sure looks like even if they win and some of those upsets that they can't go over an Ohio State or something like that.
I'm not sure that they can at this point, based on where they're at Big 12 standings, but then you would have the classic conference championship versus quality of team. I'm of the opinion that you should have the 4 best teams regardless of if you make your conference championship or not.
So do conference championships matter in your opinion?
Not as much, no. Because it's determined based on...
Like it works out for between Washington and Oregon this year, I think, perfectly, right?
Yeah.
It works out that way. Other cases,
we're not going to determine the best team in the Big Ten based on the Big Ten championship.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry that I know Iowa's got a great ranking, but really?
Right.
So, and that would oftentimes happen in the SEC. That whole Alabama is not playing in the conference championship. Should they be? Well, yeah, they're very clear. In a lot of those years, they were very clearly one of the top 3 teams in the country. But because they happen to be in a division with one of the other top 3 or 4 teams in the country, then that, like Ohio State, Michigan, then one of them gets knocked out and then they can't play in their conference championship. But you couldn't play in your conference championship. Well, because of the way the conference divvied up the divisions. I like what the Big Ten's doing next year, for example, to wipe away East versus West so you don't have the consolation prize of winning the West Division so you can get clobbered in the championship game. It's even worse than the Legends and Leaders era. That's arbitrary. So no, I am not as much a fan of the conference championships, especially basketball. Now that's a whole nother thing when that started to become a thing. You need a conference championship to qualify, blah 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 blah, or tournaments.
Yeah, and the tournament one doesn't make sense to me.
And then the committee's well, how well do they do in the? Whoa, wait, what? Who? What? And that's really confusing. So no, I want the 4 best teams. You've heard me talk a lot about the 06 or 07 game of the whole you couldn't have an Ohio State Michigan rematch. That is the most asinine lines of logic I had ever heard for not allowing a playoff, in that case the BCS matchup, because we can't have matchups 2 weeks in a row. Why? So you don't want the 2 best teams? Just reasons? I want the 4 best teams. And if that's Ohio State, and I think they are, head to head, who do you think wins an Ohio State Texas game?
I don't know, but I want to see that one because I think that's a very good one.
It'd be nice if we could have a play-in game on next.
I would love to see a Texas Ohio State game.
See, now next year, of course, this is where it's all academic, because next year it won't matter. We'll have 12 teams, and Texas is in, and everyone else is in. But yeah, I would like to see that matched up once and for all, and find out, is Ohio State just top heavy with Marvin Harrison Jr., or do they have enough overall?
So if let's say Louisville beats Florida State, but Texas dominates Oklahoma State, then Is that enough to bypass Ohio State? Ohio State won't be playing.
There are going to be some voters that are going to really want to do that, or not voters. I mean, committee members. Sorry. I don't know.
I mean, Texas has the appeal.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers. Can we get Arch Manning in for a snap or something like that?
Moving to the SEC next year.
Yeah.
It's Texas, and Texas is back. All that stuff.
Better shot to jump up into the top 4. I know it's very small already, but better shot. Alabama beating Georgia or Texas beating Oklahoma State if Florida State loses.
Ooh, because that Alabama win would be a really good win. Are we getting to a scenario where Georgia and Alabama are in the top 4?
Because remember, too, who did Alabama lose to earlier in the season?
Texas. Yeah. Oh, boy, because there's nothing like getting Alabama in. You got to get the ratings. Man, I don't know.
If it was just for me personally, I'd like to see Texas if I had to pick between those two. Something different.
Okay.
A little bit different. I like games when you got star quarterbacks, to be real with you.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers, Texas, and that. So yeah, I'd rather see Texas.
I mean, there's the turnaround story with Bama. Was it Millero? I'm trying to remember his name, but yeah, Ewers is the higher profile guy, and of course, like, what if Manning has to come in? We have a situation like the other year, in the national championship when
with Tua and Jalen Hurts, yeah,
yeah. I mean, what if that happens? And I don't want Ewers to get injured, but what if that happens?
Well, he doesn't have to get injured. He just had to play really bad. That's what Jalen Hurts.
That's true. Yes, you're right. But you could have a scenario where suddenly Arch Manning is playing a significant game. Okay, who are the 4 best?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Steve Sarkisian the offensive coordinator at Alabama at that time too?
Maybe. I got to look that up. I'll look that up. But okay, who are the 4 best teams in the country, and does that change based on what you see this next Friday/Saturday?
Michigan, Georgia, although everybody's overlooking Georgia, according to Kirby Smart. God, I still can't get over that. I mean, right now it's Washington, although Oregon's the flashier team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to see, again, Bo Nix in that. So, can we just expand it this year?
That's a punt, but it's kind of true. Michigan.
I'm just glad it worked out for Washington, Oregon. That yes, that is a true winner goes in. That one is a legit winner goes in one.
Yes.
I like quarterback plays, so I'd probably want to see Oregon. And not to say Washington. I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
See, the thing I keep wondering, are we going to see some year like this is an old example, but it's my go-to. The 83 season. It's the year Miami won the first championship when Nebraska went for 2.
Yeah.
And Miami had to leapfrog a bunch of teams. They were number 5, and yes, they beat number 1. But of course, that meant there were a bunch of other teams that could have just won their games. But like, those teams either lost or they had really bad bowl games to the point where, like, none of them were deserving, and Miami was in position to fully take advantage and go to number 1, and they did. I think that's one of the only times that ever happened to that. It's probably the most fun time watching. I was too young to be paying attention to college football, and I kind of wish I were old enough, because that would have probably been the most fun set of bowl games to watch. All these, like, oh my gosh, this team sucks. This team's not doing well. Miami's gonna, oh my gosh. And then, of course, the way that game ended. We could have a version of that this weekend. Yeah. Where, like, what if the Washington-Oregon game, this isn't good? They're like turnovers, but a good defense. And you get a scenario where Texas and Ohio State could leapfrog because one team still ends undefeated, but they don't look good doing it. I doubt it, but that's in play, I think, given the quality of the teams below them, because you can make a case down to Alabama for being in this particular set of the college football playoff.
Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix on Friday night. By the way, Penix Jr., what, 6th year already in? Former Hoosier. Yeah, he was with the put it in perspective this way. His first year with the Hoosiers, Mike McCarthy was still Packers head coach.
Wow.
I mean, come on now. I get, extra years now, but sometimes this is getting a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
A little bit here.
Guys who've been like in their late 20s still
Yeah.
going. Oh my gosh.
Not everybody can be Chris Winkie for crying out loud now. Come on now.
True.
But
True. Oh gosh, what was I'm still trying to find the Tua year, the Tua Hurts year.
Well, that would have been was it Georgia they played in that game?
Yeah. All right, I think I'm going in the wrong direction. You know what throws me off too is that they call the national championship game after the year in which it's played, even though the entire season is the year before.
Mm-hmm.
And it completely
So it would have been the 2017
20.
season.
Right. Versus against 18.
Yeah, because the game was in 2018. Yeah, Tua was 14-24.
Yep, got it. Yep, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
That game, that was that was the Georgia home game.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Georgia fans are going nuts, and then Bama wins that one. I love looking at who with time passing on here. You see Devontae Smith, Calvin Ridley, Henry Ruggs, Tua, Jake Fromm. I mean, they're names you kind of still know.
Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Just sometimes these college athletes actually do turn out to be a little something at the pro level. Sonny Michel, Nick Chubb.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's some good ones.
Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Roquan Smith. Jeez. Yeah, that was actually pretty good. And I do remember watching that game like, wow. So I mean, you could have a scenario like that with Texas. So yeah, I think Michigan, Georgia, Washington, and Ohio State, I would say, are my 4 best teams in the country. Not in that order. I think Georgia is number
So
one,
you think Washington's going to beat Oregon?
No, I think overall, like if without regard for what happens this upcoming weekend, I think those are the 4 best teams. Washington and the first 3 can obviously play their way out of that if they perform remarkably poorly, or if they have, like in Florida State situation, a star player gets injured, and that could happen to Washington. I mean, it could happen to Oregon. What if Oregon wins? Bo Nix is injured.
Mm-hmm.
Or they are okay. Well, I like I'm talking super chaos here. Oregon wins. Bo Nix gets injured late 4th quarter.
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah.
And they win a close game against Washington. They win like 20-18. Nix gets injured late, but it's too late for Washington to do anything. But it's pretty clear that Washington.
Well, you don't
won
put
the game.
Washington in there then, so
yeah. Like, what do you do?
I think they'd still put Oregon in there.
It probably would, but then you're setting up kind of like what I fear with Florida State. Like,
yeah.
Like,
you would, but how would they?
They earned it.
They would have to come out and say, "Yeah, we didn't put them in because of the quarterback."
I mean, I would hope they'd be that honest
to
do that. Fine, and if they want to do that, it's not great, but at least they're acknowledging, look, this team is no longer one of the top 4. That's where I think Florida State's getting credit by being undefeated and in position to win their conference championship. It's more of a technicality thing, and I don't know that they're good enough for that. That's where, again, I fear that they're not. I don't think they're as deserving right now. I no. I'm sorry, I don't. I would take Ohio State over. If Ohio State played Florida State right now, Ohio State's winning.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
So I that's why I would not. I mean, now Florida State can blow out Louisville, and maybe that'll start to change my mind. They have that opportunity that Ohio State no longer has.
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of miss these arguments next year when we're arguing over.
Oh, don't worry. We'll be arguing about like the 15, 14, and 13.
That's the thing. We're going to be arguing over like Tulane versus Penn State.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, yeah, but it's not as fun as Georgia and Ohio State.
I think, though, for some people, they're getting tired of arguing over the same teams.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. It's part of the reason why, like, now I'm excited about college football. I'll be perfectly honest. I've been kind of meh on the whole season because I know where it all leads to. Now, this is fun. And, like, this week is fun. I'm not sure that the semifinals will be fun. It depends on the matchups. Maybe they will be. Historically, they're not because of all the blowouts. National championship usually is fun, and I'm all in on the national championship, and I will be again this year. But when you know it's going to probably be Georgia and probably Ohio State or Michigan, probably something involving Alabama, you're like, oh, okay, cool. They're going to be there at the end of the season. So let's just wait until then. What does the rest of the regular season matter?
Right. All right. So let's take a quick break. We'll be back. We're going to talk some more baseball coming up here. Brewers possibly locking up Jackson Churio for the long term. Let's get back to that conversation after these quick words. Prepare for the holidays with your local holiday headquarters, Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Whether you're looking to prepare for a big holiday feast or looking to grab some party platters, Hy-Vee in Eau Claire has everything you need to make your holiday get-togethers extra special this year. And remember, Hy-Vee is your headquarters for all your catering needs for those work Christmas parties. From a wide selection in their meat department, bakery goods as far as the eye can see, and a massive wine and spirits department, Hy-Vee has something for everyone. Plus, you can even get some Christmas shopping done with their new toy aisles and the sweet sports shop over there. Get ready for the holidays with the help from Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Spent the first hour talking about Ken Rosenthal's report from The Athletic about Jackson Cheerio and the Brewers potentially coming to a record-breaking extension for a player who's under so much control right now and yet to make his major league debut. Just saw Kurt Hogg from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel tweet out that as recently as last night, momentum was building in the Jackson Cheerio extension talks, with league sources expressing optimism that a deal targeted around 8 years is working towards completion. It would be a massive move for the Brewers. An 8-year deal for a player we have yet to see in the major leagues, but definitely a player that, well, a lot of fans have expressed a ton of excitement and a ton of optimism about. What's the first thing that comes through your mind as a outside observer about the Brewers potentially locking up their top prospect, Lucas, without even seeing him on the major league level yet?
They're trying to do an advanced version, and maybe this will work, of the Atlanta Braves approach, which I think is one of the smartest approaches in baseball right now. All those younger players, when they started to kind of get good, they remember that wave of really long-term deals that happened right before the labor unsettling. It's more of, I think it was like the players making sure they locked in their money and the teams making sure they locked in their plans. And then it all turned out to be fine, but it was a hedge. But it's also a smart thing to do because you lock up those guys long-term. These players are going to stick around. They're, unless the climate around baseball athletes changes and goes all NBA style, and in 5 years they're all asking out midway through their contract. I doubt that'll happen, but you never know. At rates that are lower than what they probably would otherwise get. It's team friendly. We hear that a lot with Andrew Brandt. How many times you have a team friendly versus a player friendly contract? This is going to be, if Jackson Cheerio turns out the way we anticipate he will play, this is very much going to be a team friendly contract.
Mm-hmm.
But they got him for 8 years, past the Yelich era, past a lot of the eras we know he would be a Milwaukee Brewer, when probably the entire team, as we see on the field, or as we saw on the field, will have turned over, with maybe the exception of Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick, possibly. But that's okay if he turns out to be that good. And as a small market team, that does not have the money, does not have the resources as other teams, you're going to have to make some of these riskier moves to try to save money with a guy who's if he's as good as advertised, it's going to probably demand what would you say, if he is at his peak 5-6 years from now? And then also figure inflation of salaries by that time.
$30 million a year?
Yeah.
So
the Brewers are going to be getting a royal discount. And again, unless he becomes and maybe he wouldn't be the one, maybe someone else is the first to say, no, I'm sitting out. I'm not going to play. You have to trade me or re-sign my. I mean, maybe that happens, but again, the climate in baseball hasn't quite worked that way. Short of that, this is going to be a great move for the Brewers. I like that they're doing this, understanding the risk of, unlike what the Braves did with guys that established themselves for a short time, but we don't know for sure.
Brewers have done a couple of similar moves to this with Freddie Peralta, but we saw him a little bit more, but they locked him up long-term. Aaron Ashby, probably a little bit more of is the more recent example, but we didn't see him as much at the major league level. We didn't get to see him this past year because of an injury, but they locked him up. I mean, is this the way that the Brewers potentially kind of go about combating the big spenders in Major League Baseball now.
I think that's probably one of the best approaches.
A
you
new
can
era in Milwaukee.
Ooh. I think
It's
so.
risk, but a high reward, right?
Right.
Because you're giving a lot of money to somebody who's, let's call it unproven, right? He's unproven. It's fair to say that.
You're not going to be able to trade him off easily if it doesn't work out.
Right. So, but does the reward outweigh the risk? I think it does.
I agree. Because otherwise, you don't spend the money. He's up for eventually arbitration, which is going to get pricey. The bad vibes that can come from that, as we've seen with other Milwaukee Brewers in recent history. And then maybe he ends up going or gets traded. And we go through the cycle again. And the Brewers, once again, are maybe going to win the division and possibly, if everything breaks just right, could go on a playoff run. Again, how many times have we gone through that with the Brewers? Let's try something different. Why not? Unless Mark Adonasio commits to more spending or sells to a person who, quote unquote, doesn't care. Someone like the late Peter Seidler in a small market who was like, bleep it, I'm spending money. I want a winner. You'd have to have something like that. And right now you're not. So the current situation is this. I say, give that a try, lock these guys up, and you're putting faith in what David Stearns and Matt Arnold have assessed, chosen, their scouting assessments and their scouts as well to bring in these players. Like, okay, that's why we hired you guys. So, all right, we're going to put the money in for this and hope that it all works out.
I feel like, because there's a couple scenarios, and I think it was Adam McCulvey or MLB.com broke out. There's a couple scenarios at play if this does happen. Like, because the big question is going to be, does this kind of give us a hint of what the Brewers are going to do this offseason? Because still the major question is going to be, are they going to trade Corbin Burns, Willie Adames, et cetera, et cetera? And there's a couple ways. One is like, okay, they're going to go full on youth movement and, trade those guys. And as MLB.com said, really, go for 2025. The other part of me, though, too, is like, because it reminds me so much of, to put it in a football perspective, taking advantage of a rookie quarterback contract, or a quarterback under a rookie contract. Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Bears tried doing it with Trubisky, didn't work. So that's where when I saw 8 years, I'm like, okay, that gives us a little bit more leeway, because if we look at the previous contracts for some of these guys, like the White Sox with Robert Jr. was a 6-year deal, $50 million. But if you're doing that to take advantage of paying an elite player that you think is going to be an elite player a cheaper deal, especially if you get to arbitration, it's probably going to average out to still be cheaper than what it would be at arbitration. Do you still try to take advantage of that and surround that player with a lot of talent because you're getting hopefully an elite player on the cheap?
I think you get the opportunity to do it under the right circumstances.
It almost feels like everything's kind of a bridge, or because, if you factor in the Pat Murphy hire, okay, Pat Murphy, but Ricky Weeks is associate manager, not bench coach, associate manager. It just feels like there's a lot of transition pieces in place for the Brewers. Like, I still feel like Corbin Burns is going to start this season with the Brewers. And if it's not going well, then he gets traded by the trade deadline. But it feels like they're setting themselves up to be like, we're not going to push all the chips in, but we're just going to try to, we're going to be competitive, and we're going to set ourselves up to where when we sell, we're still going to try to be competitive.
As the Aaron Rodgers line again, not
retool,
or to use the Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, a competitive rebuild. It's the same thing,
right?
For in the case of the Brewers, I absolutely think so. I like right now, pre-free agency, the Brewers are not winning the division. I think it's going to be the Cubs. I think the Cardinals are already making moves to noticeably improve. It's going to be those two teams. The Reds will still be around, and the Pirates are a team on the upswing. That doesn't mean the Brewers are going to fall to fifth. They're not winning the division like by a lot this year. And if they do, it's going to be because a lot of teams underperform. But that's okay for 1 year. Again, sometimes you have to almost sacrifice a year so you can be in position to win more frequently down the road. And I think that's probably what they're doing. And if there is a year where Churio and Mitchell, some other prospect, Frelick are doing well, they can bring in a couple guys, and you might have a year or two when you can go all in, do like a 2021 or 2018, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere in like, just throw it out here, like 2027, you could do that maybe. That put yourself in a position where you can afford to go to splurge on some free agents.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fine approach. If that's the plan, I like it.
Because it sure seems like they're setting themselves up in the next few years that your main players are going to be Cheerio. I think Sal Frelick is probably a part of that. Freddie Peralta and Aaron Ashby, they're probably hoping going to be their top two starters in the next couple of years, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
At this point. So, and then Bryce Terang maybe moving over to shortstop or whatever. But it just feels like it's they're setting themselves up for not rebuilds, but like transition rebuilds, or like you said, maybe a competitive rebuild.
Yes.
Where they're not going to completely tear it down and it's going to be an awful couple years, which would fit in line with the narrative from Mark Anasio that he is not in favor of rebuilds.
Yeah, they're not going to pull the Astros tanking, the Cubs tanking, those teams full-blown tank, the Orioles to a degree, so they got better faster than expected. The Brewers are not going to fall down to 62 wins. I was recently going through Baseball Reference, the season by season thing. I wanted to look at the history of their SRS, the simple rating system. So I'm going season by season, and oh my gosh, there were some bad Brewer years in the early 2000s, which we all know. That's not like I have to remind anyone of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go through and actually look at the numbers again, the Brewers are nowhere close to that putridity. Oh my gosh, those teams sucked. The Brewers aren't going to be that bad. They've built too much of a farm system, and their farm system is, while it got kind of dry a few years ago because they were trading guys out, it's turned back around.
Mm-hmm.
They're in position where they're going to be in the playoff discussion. I think. And I know that's a loose thing to say because you could be under 500 and be in the playoff discussion, but at least they're in the discussion that something could go right. You saw what happened with the Diamondbacks. You can be barely over 500 going around. I think they're going to be in that position for the foreseeable future. I know that's not. You're also going to be a World Series favorite, and I don't know if they're going to be a World Series favorite, unfortunately, for the foreseeable future. But at least I don't see them getting back to Davey Lopes era where. Yeah, because here's the other thing that I was reminded of as I'm going season by season. Remember the year the Brewers basically said at the beginning of the year, we're not going to be good. We're going to try.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which year that was, but it popped back in my mind for the first time in forever. I was reminded of how bad the Brewer organization was at one point. We don't see that anymore, and I don't see that happening with moves like what they're doing with Churio, a risk. But that kind of move, that's not happening anytime this decade, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And I think why not try something different, right? Why not try to?
Why not?
What do you got to lose, right? You want your owner to spend some money? Well, he's barely willing to spend some money on a highly touted prospect that we have yet to see at the major league level.
Oh, you're going to spend money on Craig Counsell. What's he doing with his money? Okay.
Nobody can be mad then because I would say the majority of Brewers fans have wanted to see Jackson Churio for a while.
Yes.
If they sign him and he plays, but let's say he has a Keston Hiura type of or doesn't live up to that, nobody can be mad at Brewers management, can they?
They will.
But they will. But they shouldn't be, right?
They shouldn't be. That's the thing. They very much will because they're going to say, well, you screwed up that too. Because there's a bit of a track record of overall Brewer management kind of screwing up some stuff. Not 100% because they wouldn't be as in a division winning playoff position as they are right now. But they've got somewhat of a history, and the Counsell thing doesn't earn them any leeway.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of if Craig Counsell would have been like, no, I just want to go on to something else no matter what. You can't convince me no matter what. You can pay me $20 million. I'm going elsewhere. I don't know.
Like a Devontae Adams.
Right. Yeah. Something like that. And we'll never fully know what that situation is. But to a lot of fans, I was of the impression now that the whole Counsell cycle has gone through until, of course, he comes to Wrigley North. Sorry, but that's what that game's going to be like. I think most of the upset responses were at Mark Atanasio than Craig Counsell. My initial thought was, people are going to flame the likes out of Craig Counsell. I think it was more, you tell me if you were seeing different stuff on assorted social media platforms and just general feedback. I thought it was at least 70-30, maybe closer to 80-20 anti-Atanasio versus anti-Counsell.
I would say more 60-40.
Really?
Yeah. Because it was more of like you had the narrative, if it was the Mets, we get it. But it was the Cubs, so that's why they were pissed. The
There was
rivalry
that,
thing,
yes.
too. So
But gosh, maybe I was more surprised, and maybe I'm overstating the amount of Atanasio stuff because I didn't expect as much anti-Atanasio. I figured, well, Council going to the rival, that you can't do that. But then a lot of people were like, well, thanks, Atanasio.
mm-hmm.
I think it's because the dollar values got out and because he's getting the reputation as a chief owner.
Yeah.
So I understand what his situation, but still, the rep's out there.
It is. So
What can you do?
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to finish up the second hour. Don't forget stock reports. We'll hit those up just past 8 o'clock. Play along with us whose stock is up and whose stock is down. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Snow is here and more is coming. That means more shoveling and constant reminders of the pain in your knee and your back and your shoulders. While Santa can't help you with living a pain-free, healthier life, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine can. This winter season, stop dealing with the pain. Visit cvosm.com to schedule an appointment, and the team at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine will help you start living that pain-free, healthier, and more enjoyable life. So this holiday season, ask Santa for that vacation or maybe a new toy, and leave the pain healing to the experts at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Before we finish up the second hour here, did you see the Mark Cuban news?
Yeah.
That kind of surprised me here a little bit. So if Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks for now, but apparently he's going to be selling the majority of his shares, but will remain governor of the franchise and in control of all basketball decisions. The agreement would be in a valuation of around $3.5 billion. So essentially, Mark Cuban would be giving up majority stake of ownership with the Mavericks, still hold some shares, but still make all the decisions for the Mavericks at this point.
That I was a little perplexed by that. Like, well, selling majority, but you're still in charge.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where a lot of people are like, that's a win for Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
So he doesn't have to have the money invested, but still.
Yeah.
He also announced he's leaving Shark Tank.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
maybe he's retired.
Well, he's 65.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought that.
No, I saw that in the story. I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Man.
He still seems like he's 48.
Yeah.
He seems like he's been 48 for like a few decades now.
Wow.
He's old. I mean, relatively speaking, but yeah, he's getting up there.
I never would have thought more. I thought Mark Cuban was going to be a lifer, like just constant, like a Jerry Jones type of thing.
Well, that's the thing. He kind of still can be.
Mm-hmm.
He's not out. But wouldn't that be a like the NBA is a hot commodity right now? Like that's a cliche, but it is a hot commodity right now. But then again, maybe he's figuring, well, I know it's a good value right now. Maybe it plateaus at a certain point, starts to go down. This is the time to do it. I'm not sure. Maybe he just wants to go on and invest in other stuff. That's also a possibility.
Yeah, he does some movie stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, something.
Wasn't he like nominated for an Oscar a few years back or something?
I'm trying to remember what it was. But yeah, so that it might be as simple as that. But that's weird. The other part of this again, the gambling aspect, the Adelsons, the Sands Casino. 10 years ago, could you have conceived of this?
No.
Even understanding the way gambling trends were going in the country, could you have conceived of that? No, I couldn't.
No.
And now
not even close. No.
Now some of the biggest names in gambling in the country are going to, presuming this gets approved, and I'm sure it will, are going to be owning an NBA team. That's not in Vegas.
Yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Definitely.
The times have changed. Have you been seeing the ESPN bet promos going around?
Yes. Yep.
I saw that the other night.
Because if you go to like when you look at games and previews, like the lines now, it used to be Caesars, now it's ESPN Bet.
Yep. And I saw it watching Monday Night Football. We had the stream up on the phone while we were having dinner, so we're watching it at the table, and there comes the ESPN Bet promo, and the thing I'm looking at, seeing that it's like it's like a younger middle-aged woman sitting in a nice kind of restaurant, and then she starts placing bets like, oh, we're really trying to get outside of the stereotypical tech bro betting every single thing. They're trying to mainstream the heck out of this. That was my first thought when I saw that advertisement or promotion, I guess, because it's in-house. It's really not an advertisement. But yeah, that's they're trying to get a lot of people. And there's part of me that is like, are we sure this is really a good thing? Really? And all of like, we could go on a whole another rant for a whole hour on the wisdom of gambling, et cetera, and what that's all going to do. But they're trying to make this far more mainstream, to the point of like the Amazon tap. You've just gotten your new thing that's going to be shipped your way. Same with ESPN Bet tap. And now we just did the first quarter over-unders. That could go sideways real fast. but that's kind of the way they're promoting it.
Well, I mean, it's up to the individual person to control it too. That's the thing. So.
That's the thing. So the opportunity is there.
Mhm.
What do you do with the opportunity? But ESPN's going to push that. And I also understand why they're pushing it, because they made an investment in this. They're not going to just have ESPN bet sit off to the side. Like you said, with the over-unders and the lines, we're going to see that all over the place. Do you think this is going to work, ESPN bet, given with who they're up against? Like the DraftKings, the
FanDuel's, DraftKings, Caesars, and all that sort of stuff. It's the mothership, so I'm sure they'll. Yeah,
not
I think
everything's
it'll work.
worked.
No,
ESPN on the phone.
I think they will. Yeah, I mean, they're going to incorporate some of their fancy stuff into it too. So yeah, I think it'll work for them.
And it'll be interesting to see how this goes. I'm fascinated to see how this works.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to start to see the more. I mean, you started to see some of them, but you're going to start to see more of the experts with the over unders and like Kay Adams does a lot of this with her show FanDuel, like 50 yards for Christian Watson, hammer that or something like that. Those type of bets in that. So you're going to see a lot more experts in that field, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was fantasy experts and the Matthew Berrys, and then it was the analytical experts like the NFL Network has with Cynthia Freeland and the mathematicians and all that. Now it's going to be the over-under experts and that sort of stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
A lot more of that.
Yeah. And that's what generates more of I think getting more of the casual fans into it, like fantasy sports does.
Like that promo showing someone who it's the stereotype of not a sports fan can get involved in ESPN bet.
I mean, for crying out loud, I remember as a kid helping out with the good old fashioned, and I think some places still do it, the good old fashioned square bets with the scores, for the Packers scores. Everybody would bring it home from work and like, okay, I got this number, and you're like, you're following the game because of that, right? You're following, you know what I'm talking about, everybody, right? Those squares where on one side it's like 3, 7, 4, whatever, and then the top it's another one, and then first quarter, whatever the score was, who had that square? You got it. Those old school ones back then.
Mm-hmm.
Good ones there.
So
I was introduced to it. I still don't quite understand it, but it's like, okay, I just got to know this number. All right, I'll watch for that number.
This is the modern version.
Yep. So, all right, 2 in. We got one more to go. Let's take a quick break, and then we've got stock reports. Whose stocks are rising? Whose stock is falling? We'll hit that up after these news updates. All right, final hour on this Wednesday morning, making the turn Wednesday already, halfway through the week here. Coming up, we're going to do some stock reports. We'll get back to some baseball talk too, hoops talk. The in-season tournament is set. The Bucks with the 1 seed after their win last night. Braylon Allen skipping the Badger Bowl game. He's going to be going and he declared yesterday he's going to be entering the NFL draft. So we'll hit up on those topics again coming up here in just a little bit. But let's get right to it. Let's do some stock reports. Whose stock is rising and whose stock is falling? I'll go first today. How about that?
Let's do that.
My stock is rising for Green Bay and Jordan Love. How about that? My Jordan Love-o-meter, 7.7.
Thanks for doing the points.
Yes.
I was afraid we're going to be getting to like 9. Like
7.7 right now. Fantastic game Thursday against the Lions there. So we're sitting here at 5-6. Got a tough test with Kansas City coming up. But who would have thought in the middle of October we'd be talking about a potential playoff spot right now? Packers just got to win 3 more games to match last year's win total, for crying out loud. Put that in perspective.
Yeah.
So stock right. How do you? Their stock's up right now. Absolutely. And a little bit of Joe Barry too.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair point. Yes. It's like the other week where, you have the same one as me.
Do I really?
Yeah.
Nice.
The Green Bay Packers.
That's why I wanted to go first. So
yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
They're I think they're trending towards a playoff spot. I know the Vikings are the 7th spot right now. Yeah, they haven't not looked good for 2 weeks, but they're up and down enough that and based on their schedule, I wouldn't say that they're done. But the Packers are in a good spot right now. They're I think the team is kind of coming together a bit more. The schedule, of course, is going to help. There is a lot to like with that. Again, over the course of 2 games, there's a lot to like. 1 game can be 1 game.
Right.
But 2 is starting to get there. I want to see a 3rd. I want to see them really competitive against Kansas City, which I think they can be. I think the Chiefs are, they might be in a good spot to do that. If the Chiefs have one of those games, they're like, all right, that's it. We're going to go into Lambeau and win this one 35-10. I don't think that's this type of team. But if they do that, what's your assessment of the Packers? Not that I'm not saying undo your stock report, but what if that happens on Sunday night?
I don't know. Like this Packers team just eerily reminds me a little bit of the Eagles and Jalen Hurts' first full year of starting, where they snuck into the postseason with 9 wins and they got waxed in the first round by Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. After that, what'd they do? They went to the Super Bowl, and look at what they're doing this year. It's that obviously would be like the ultimate comparison to get to a Super Bowl and then, be a 1 seed so far this year and look still like one of the best teams in the NFC. So I wouldn't probably overreact too much because I feel like I feel like the Chiefs are that team that's just waiting to explode on offense too, because that's been their talking point for the last few weeks. Hey, we'll get there. It'll figure it out. And you got Patrick Mahomes and you got Travis Kelce. You're just almost waiting for them to kind of like come out and just whoop up on somebody. And watch, it'll probably be Green Bay. So
see, I don't think it's going to be the Packers. It feels like it's going to be some other team.
I do too. Like I feel better about this game. Like I'm still picking Kansas City to win, but I feel better about this game being maybe a little bit closer than I did a few weeks ago.
And being at Lambeau, I think, helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's actually been the Chiefs' defense has been the big part for their success this year.
The funny thing is, looking at, not to break down the Chiefs this morning, but looking at their schedule, I'm trying to figure out what could be that game. Again, I don't think it's going to be the Packers. I mean, maybe they wax the Bills, which the way the Bills are playing, I know the Bills play pretty well. It's just not good enough against Philly. Maybe that one. They'll probably annihilate the Patriots, but I mean, who wouldn't at this point, unless you're the Giants, and even then you can still win. I'd say maybe the Raiders on Christmas Day at Arrowhead, but the Raiders, that's that team. They're the Northwestern to the Badgers. There's a thing, and that game will end up being close. Do we have to wait for Kansas City's coming out game to be New Year's Eve, what was supposed to be the big Burrow Mahomes game?
No.
That's the second to last game of the season. It might be that long.
Yeah.
And for Kansas City, I don't know that it matters. They're more playoff concerned at this point anyway. They're like the Packers this season in that they're trying to build into what they imagine their team will be at the end of the season. In the case of Kansas City, it's a likely Super Bowl winner. In the case of Green Bay, maybe a playoff team, but those are the goals. And I think both teams are moving there. I think this should be a good Sunday night football game.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to make a pick. I mean, I'm probably picking the Chiefs, but I think this should be a good game.
I hope so. But
We've had a lot of bad highlighted primetime games this season.
we have, but and I'm not a moral victory guy, but when you look at this season overall from Green Bay and factoring in how inexperienced they are on the offensive side, they've only really got blown out or one game got out of hand once this year, if you think about it, right?
Mhm.
Detroit game,
Yeah.
week 4. Other than that, and again, I'm not making excuses because I'm not a moral victory. Las Vegas, they had a shot at the end. Denver shot Minnesota, even a couple shots there in the red zone, and they didn't come away with any points. Beat the Rams. Pittsburgh, again, same like the Raiders game. And then Chargers in Detroit.
Yeah.
Should that make fans feel a little bit better considering how inexperienced and young they are? And yet they really only got taken out in one game. And even that Detroit one, they started to make a little bit of a comeback, but you could just kind of tell by the halftime that was going to be done with.
Mm-hmm.
Should fans feel a little bit better about that?
I
It's almost like the 08 in essence, kind of, where a lot of those games were, one possession losses at the end.
So is that Giants game already kind of scaring you a little bit? Like that's going to be Packers are going to blow them out, and then I don't know. I've already got a bad feeling, not as a Packer fan, obviously, but just as a football observer, I got a bad feeling for the Packers for that Monday night game. I don't know. And maybe it's because, again, like I said, we've had so many poor plays, which I don't know what you do about that. Players, I'm not going all Tom Brady. They don't play as well nowadays, but some of these games just suck. I might have a feeling that game's going to be that one.
Suck as in like just like Monday night, what we saw?
Yeah, like
Okay.
that. Like Love has a like his one game regression happens to be that one because it's the Giants and they're just not that great. And
What, Danny DeVito is going to light it up?
Tuesday morning, you're like, oh, Packers. And I'm not even sure if they win that one. And I don't know that that's even going to say much about the rest of the season because I mean, looking at the rest of the schedule, I think they very well could. They could run the table. How many times do we have that happen with the Packers?
Yeah, I did the playoff machine because I do that every Monday morning now. And I picked every single game. And the way I did it, it worked out. I still had Green Bay losing 2 more games, but they still made it in.
Yeah. Are the Vikings in?
Yes.
Who's out?
It was Seattle.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, it was Seattle.
All right. Hot take time. Will the Packers catch the Lions?
No. I know
Lions
Peter King
seem-
said in his column that they're trending downward. I'll beat
Ah,
you before that quote.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll beat you before that one. So,
But that's a bit of a thing right now that the Lions, I mean, we've seen both of those games lately. They haven't looked as good.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
is this the rough patch? Is that all this is? It's just a rough patch.
Yeah, I mean, they started off so hot. Even going back to last year. The main thing is just the turnovers. Fix that, then they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And don't call a stupid fake punt at that point in time in game either. So, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. They'll win the division.
I think so too, yeah.
I don't think that they'll go make a deep playoff run though. I don't. I'm surprised we haven't heard the whole as the Packers have the mold to beat the Lions, the game plan. I think everybody knew it. Just pressure Jared Goff all
Yeah.
day, every day. Go
I-
do that, then you got a shot.
Yeah, I think we're a week away from the hot takes to really go mainstream on. Whoa, maybe the Packers. We're not there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah.
The conditions of a watch has been issued by the National Severe Storms Forecast Center for potential for Packer hot takes on winning the division. If they beat Kansas
I
City
thought there
and the
was something
Lions
coming
lose-
for real. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, as you know, we apparently now get tornadoes in December, so maybe I need to be a little more cautious about that even in the middle of winter. But they could be coming, but everything's got to break just right next week for the Lions to clearly be going down over the next, I'd say even maybe 2 weeks of the Lions. Lions are going to have to look bad over the next couple of weeks, and the Packers look good. But at that point, then, hey, then they might only be a game away, and maybe it's legit.
Lions schedule, in case anybody's wondering, Saints this weekend in New Orleans, Bears, Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings.
I am taking the Lions over the Saints this weekend.
The Seahawks schedule, this is where their next 3 weeks are just brutal. At the Cowboys, at the 49ers, and then the Eagles come and visit them. That was already their next 3 games. So there's an opportunity.
There is.
There's definitely an opportunity. The thing is, though, for the NFC South, you have to have Atlanta win that division. Makes things a little bit easier since they beat the 4 Saints earlier. So tiebreaker.
Atlanta's lowest in, well, I got to check the updated numbers. Atlanta's lowest in DVOA, and they're leading the division. Of the 4 teams in that division. Oh, no, sorry. I forgot Carolina. But we all forgot about Carolina. They're the lowest of the 3 that actually have a shot.
Right. Yeah, and Falcons schedule coming up here. They've got Jets, which, come on,
Yeah.
Buccaneers, Panthers, Colts, Bears, and then they finish up with the Saints. That's not a bad schedule for Atlanta.
Who was I listening? What pod was I listening to? It might have been the press box. Someone was like, "Can we officially put a moratorium on national Jets talk?"
Right?
Please.
Can we? Okay. Since you brought it up, is this season proving that you don't let one player dictate roster moves?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm getting at right now?
Yes.
And I'm talking about Aaron.
Yes.
Now, I think we would all agree the Jets are probably playing better if Aaron's healthy and playing all season, right? They've probably won a couple more games at least.
Mm-hmm.
But Alan Lazard in his first year being a healthy and active, halfway through the season, guy you gave what $44 million to, a healthy and active.
Yeesh.
Nathaniel Hackett can't get anything going on offense with this group. And I know the quarterback, Zach Wilson, but you still got Breece Hall. You still got Wilson. You should be able to at least, I would say, move the ball a little bit better than what you're doing right now. You look at some of the guys that, like there was a graphic I saw that, everybody that Aaron wanted, Nathaniel Hackett, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, those guys, Billy Turner and yada, yada, yada. And they're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not doing anything. Yet, this is what happens when you, and it's not to say it happens every single time, but does Green Bay kind of look better now by saying, yeah, we're not going to have a guy handcuff us to, decisions or anything like that anymore. We're just going to break off and kind of start over. Like, whose stock would you buy in the next 3 years?
Packers.
Yeah.
Gosh. I would have said that before the Aaron Rodgers injury. Now, I mean, well, you could almost make an argument that are the Jets in a better spot because they don't have to commit to Aaron Rodgers for all these games. Well, then they had committed to Zach Wilson, and that's that's the thing, though. Like, one guy, be careful of what you now. Maybe the chemistry would all be there if Aaron Rodgers were there, and Alan Lazard would be like top 10 wide receiver right now, and Randall Cobb would be the glue guy coming in, and maybe all of that would have happened. And we're not seeing it, obviously. And maybe that all changes if the miracle happens and he's back in 2 weeks. Which again, if he does, cool. But
somebody needs to be fired if he does come back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But if, you come back in a couple weeks and you still haven't won, you're still like 4 wins at this point, you're going to throw out a guy. It's not just a fast recovery. You're talking breakthrough recovery with an Achilles injury like this. Like I saw somebody say this would be like a breakthrough recovery timeline.
Yeah, it would be. It would be the fastest of any player that we can imagine.
He's going to be 40 in December. Notorious for holding on to the football for the last second possible behind a god-awful offensive line. Yet you're going to throw Aaron out there?
You channeling that section of Football Morning in America?
Kind of.
Yeah. That's
but
pretty
it's,
much.
It's just so, that to me is just so mind-boggling to me. And I don't care that Aaron feels bad, letting everybody down because he brought them in. What is that going to do come week 15 of this season when you're already out of it? What is that going to do? Nothing. At that point, if I'm the Jets, I'd be like, no, screw it. We'll take the higher draft pick in the first round, and since we actually own it.
Yeah.
And then New York gets to have the drama in the offseason. The Jets, do they draft a quarterback with a top 5 pick if they have one?
And what will Aaron Rodgers think?
Exactly.
And then oh gosh.
Exactly.
Oh gosh. I just realized all the drama of all of the unsourced Aaron Rodgers quotes. Aaron Rodgers is not sure that he likes they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be insufferable. Well, thankfully it's going to be the Jets, and I can tune it out if I so choose. At least it's not in Wisconsin anymore.
Could we have the Giants and the Jets in the top 5 potentially looking at drafting quarterbacks?
Yes, we could.
Ooh. New York's going to be unbearable. Actually, it'd be easy for media for them all off season. Just talk about that all the time.
Oh, well, the Jets drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. and finally Aaron Rodgers is on a team that drafts a wide receiver in the first round.
Or, I think C-Bomb mentioned it earlier. They'll probably trade out of that pick.
Yes.
Yeah. The number 1 tackle is right there for them to pick. They'll trade back. Yeah, two things as predictable as the sun having risen this morning. The Jets will trade back and out of the obvious choice, and the Packers will not draft a first-round wide receiver, even if it was there. And, yeah, they pretty much played their way out of Marvin Harrison Jr., but they would have probably done it anyway because that's how they roll. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I was just like, wow. Matt LaFleur was right when Rodgers left. Matt LaFleur made Aaron Rodgers made a lot of careers. Yeah.
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 He did.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're seeing that over in the Meadowlands
was it last week too when Schefter broke that an accumulation of information thing that the Jets were going to try to acquire Devontae Adams this offseason. You just gave $44 million to Allen Lazard. You've got Garrett Wilson. Yeah, let's bring in another receiver. This is Green Bay again all over.
As much as I did just mention the whole, like, can we finally be collectively done with Jets talk? It's a little bit of the car wreck sort of thing, because we all have connections here in the state. I mean, I was just looking through the Packer schedule. So I go to the ESPN.com Packer page to quick bring up the schedule. And one of the first things is Aaron Rodgers' picture, because it's one of those, I think they tag it internally. It's how you end up with stories that seemingly have no relation to your team end up being there. So because it's an Aaron Rodgers thing, it's right near the top. Like, okay, I guess we're still paying attention.
Just please, for just Minnesota, if you could sacrifice finishing in 3rd in the division, so we don't have to have the Jets come to Lambeau. I don't know if I can deal with that.
Given that I live in this state and I have to factor in stuff like that. See, if I lived over in the Twin Cities, I might be able to be like, whatever. But I do have to deal with that, and I kind of don't want to deal like you. I don't want to deal with Aaron Rodgers' return to Lambeau, and what does it mean? I'm just, if the Vikings aren't going anywhere this year, you know what? I might, if I can get Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah on the phone, which I can't, but if I could, I might ask, could you do us a solid? I'm sorry, I know it's the rival, but please, for the good of, think of your fellow Upper Midwesterner.
Yeah.
You probably, we've got relatives across the border here. We just need a nice season of football. We don't need this.
Yeah. Yeah. Please do.
Please.
All right. Stock faller. So that was your stock riser.
Yeah. So your stock faller.
My stock faller right now. Man, I'm all over the board right now. I was so pumped about that one.
You were.
My stock faller right now, I'm going to go with I already did New England. This is where I was saying in the first hour, I was going back and forth between a few of them, and I was kind of struggling.
You had a lot. I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of struggling here a little bit, but I'm going to go into minority on this one. The NBA in-season tournament.
Whoa, hot take.
I know people like the games, but here's my thing. It's so confusing to follow who qualifies for this thing. Because you look at who is in it. Okay, the Bucks are the 1 seed. Cool, great. But there was a chance last night. Like, I was following along online. Well, if the Heat win between 11 and 19 points, then the Bucks don't make it. But if the Heat win by only 5 to 9 points, then the Bucks would actually have to go here. And it's like, just tell me what happens if the Bucks win or lose. And I get it, it's the point differential tiebreaker scenario. But it was to that point where it's like you got to follow along. Like there was like 3-4 different options for this. I don't want it confusing. I really don't. And when you look at the like your Timberwolves are number 1 in the Western Conference, but they're not in this. They're not in the play-in tournament. Lakers are the 1 seed in the West. Then you got the Suns as a 4 seed, Kings as a 2, and the Pelicans as a 3. Bucks is a 1, Knicks is a 4, Pacers are 2, Boston's a 3. I'm like, okay, so should I be cheering for them? Like, and then the courts are just god awful ugly. I'm sorry, but that's so bad. That Miami court reminded me so much of our middle school gym when we had it, where it wasn't even a hardwood floor. Anybody around my age in Medford probably remembers this. I would hope so. We had this floor. It was like a plastic tile. Like they changed it. It was like the new thing. It was like hard plastic tiles where you could lift them up and, you put the volleyball net in there and all that. But it was like red and gray. It was red and gray. I'm not a fan of it. I'm sorry. If you get great games, like you got a great atmosphere, playoff atmosphere type of game, awesome, cool. The players continue to buy in. Fans are going to buy in. But for me, it's just like, I get it. You got to come up with a tie-breaking scenario somehow. They're doing a point differential to try to get these players to continue to play. It just got confusing to me. It's like there was a possibility the Bucks would have been 3-1 in pool play or whatever and still not have made it. I'm like, why? How's that possible? It's confusing.
This is another one where I think they're trying to follow the soccer approach. Think like World Cup, stuff like that. Point differential makes it goal differential there. Of course, to use the proper terminology. But that makes a little more sense. It's easier to follow because it's usually like 1 goal here or 1 goal there. And because the scoring is way less frequent in soccer than it is in basketball. That's where you end up with 11s and 5s and 12s, and the math becomes a lot.
Yeah, this was like one scenario. I don't know who this guy, John Hollinger is from the Athletics. So God bless him for like keeping everybody updated on this.
And he's kind of a genius with this stuff anyway.
If Bucks win, New York at Milwaukee, Boston at Indiana. If the Heat win by less than 11, then Milwaukee goes to Indiana, Boston at New York. If the Heat win by 11-17, no Milwaukee, Cleveland at Indiana, Boston at New York. If the win Heat by 18-29, Miami at Indiana, Boston at New York. What the hell's going on here?
Got the Julia Roberts meme going right now.
I'm just like, okay, I've got the Alan from The Hangover counting the cards, look and all that going on.
I don't know what do you do different? Like, do you not do the pools, throw them all into what? Do you have an extra game in it? I know Billy Donovan was complaining about fouling involved, and then was it Hollinger or someone else? One of like the main basketball people I follow on Twitter said, like, do you have like a play-in game so you can avoid stuff like that? I think there's going to be something tweaked next year. I know, like over the last couple of weeks, I've heard some of the
John Hollinger, this because he retweeted Billy Donovan's press conference.
Mm-hmm.
So Billy Donovan did not like the Celtics' decision to purposely follow Andre Drummond in the fourth quarter. Stated that teams have to chase point differential, but felt that crossed the line. Hollinger said multiple teams in the East broke the code last night. Fun times. Adding an extra group game or 2 would make this less common. Tough to avoid with just 4.
The code.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing, though. I mean,
you got to hire coaches now to keep tabs on all that stuff with point differentials.
As much as we say this cynically about the NFL, guess what we're talking about right now?
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even into the playoffs of the tournament, the games that matter, the ones that everyone's supposed to be paying attention to. We're talking about this stuff right now. Now, granted, some of it's in a negative way. I think the NBA is going to tweak it further. Again, in recent weeks, I've heard like some suggestions of, do you have by people follow the sports? Do you tie in a playoff berth in some capacity? Like the winner is guaranteed a home playoff series to start. Something like that.
What's going to happen now is going to be your whole thing about a win. Under 500 teams going to have a home court advantage.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of that. No, because this is basically going on a 6-game hot streak. Well, okay, maybe the Pistons can't go on a 6-game hot streak.
The A seed's going to have home court advantage.
Yeah, that could be now again, maybe it's like the first round only, and then you lose at this, but then that could be complicated. Like, so you got home court advantage here, but then you don't have it. There's something. I'm not quite sure what it is, and I think it can be figured out. You got to see all of the dynamics of the season, see how the players react. Like if the players are loving this, which I think ultimately, as much as I've said that part of this is Adam Silver trying to soccerize, I don't mean that in a bad way. I think he thinks that's a model that works. And if you're trying to grow the NBA internationally, relating it to the most popular international sports, probably a good idea. A big part of it also is getting players to care more about the rest of the regular season. And if this is the thing that does it, and there's really no other tweaks, we may end up being quote unquote stuck with it, the point differentials and stuff. But hey, if we're talking about it all now, we'll probably be talking about it in an anticipatory way next year, which builds up more and more promotion for it. I hope that the remaining games are good.
You're looking at this Eastern side, at least it sets up for a potential Bucks and Celtics matchup to go to the championship.
And LeBron versus KD.
Yeah, but that's a first one. I'd like to see that one at the
But they are going to play each other in a game earlier on. And now I've heard a few folks say maybe it's better if you have some of the lesser teams involved. That if you don't have just take the top four as is now.
It gets more exposure for the Pelicans.
Right. Kings, I mean, and that's kind of the appeal of
hey, the Knicks made a tournament. How about that?
Hey, celebration in New York.
They could have almost hosted if the Heat would have won by, was it 11-17? Who cares?
It's so funny if the Knicks actually won the in-season tournament. Given how crazy they went when they made the playoffs the other year, went on that bit of a run, and then when they lost, it was like the apocalypse in New York. It's like, really, guys? Knicks fans, chill the bleep out. If they actually know, the high comedy would be them making the championship and losing. And then we have Knicks talk for like a whole week.
Yeah.
Which I know would be like Aaron Rodgers talk in Wisconsin. It's insufferable. But hey, I think they're onto something. But yeah, a little bit tweaking needs to be done. We need to play it out first. Let's see what happens. And maybe something comes up in these quarterfinals and semifinals. And I don't know. I do like that the Timberwolves ended up getting an extra Memphis game out of this, because if everyone else has to get an extra 2 regular season games and actually locked in, like, oh, thanks for the gimme, guys.
Yep. I do like Damian Lillard's approach about the in-season tournament. He's going with because of the cash prize at stake, but he's looking at it more towards the guys at the bottom of the roster, like the two-way contract players. As you said, the prize in the end is what everybody's wanting to get to. I think that puts a little bit higher stakes in the games, and it gives us something to get up for. I think it's a situation where it's a tournament. You want to win that first of all, but for us in our position, guys like myself, Giannis, Chris, Brooke, we've made a lot of money, but I think as a leader and somebody who cares about your teammates, especially your younger teammates, you got guys on two-way contracts, guys who are trying to earn their stay, and that prize in the end could change their families' lives.
Yeah, so that's a good way of putting it.
All right, your stock faller.
Sports Illustrated.
Oh yeah, the artificial intelligence thing.
Drew Ortiz. Oh my gosh, what a! I get the use of artificial intelligence. I know it's a thing, but it's one thing to be having articles that are AI. It's another thing to be faking that someone actually is real behind it. And then that person turns out to be not a person. That's a whole nother thing. And especially the way Sports Illustrated reacted. I know they fired the company that was behind it, the article, but still when they were asked and then they suddenly pull it, they're definitely not owning it. That's that. And I know Sports Illustrated is not what it used to be. It has definitely fallen. So this is a stock that doesn't have that much further to fall, but it has fallen more. And it's kind of, it's a variation of the Carissa Thompson thing. Like, so Sports Illustrated posted that. Really? Did they? And gosh, that's out there now. In a way, and I can't believe I'm saying this because 15 years ago, I cannot believe I would have said this. I'm glad this is happening to as tarnished of a brand as Sports Illustrated. If this had been, say, ESPN.com is one of the biggest sites out there, and they did this, then you might actually be moving into Carissa Thompson territory of, can you believe anything anyone is writing? Because at least you can go, okay, I see what SI is doing. They're doing an AI thing, and yeah, they're just trying to save money, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But it's still not a good look, and it makes people more skeptical, and that makes their brand look all the worse.
They need to have the Barry Alvarez mindset. AI hires me. Right?
I like that. I also like seeing
Search firms hire me.
I mean, I do like the more people can incorporate Allen Iverson into AI stories.
Yeah.
Also, someone did the whole like Beatles AI thing, and then there's a picture of the Beatles in the studio from like Get Back, and there's Allen Iverson sitting there in his Sixers jersey. It was just hilarious to see the concept of that. Oh gosh, I this keeps happening though. This is like the third time there's been a major media organization though that has kind of been caught, not to this degree of making up a person. It's part of me that wants to take, and I'm sure this is an old thing to take, already old, to take Drew Ortiz's image and use it as your avatar.
Yeah.
But man, there's going to be more. That's the sucky thing.
Mhm.
This isn't stopping. It'll be something maybe not quite as egregious, but maybe more insidious. Like it happens, you don't really know it's happening.
Mhm.
It's still happening.
All right, those are our stock reports. We got to take a quick break here, catch up on some stuff. We'll be back after these quick words. Trying something out new here. Created a Facebook group so we can keep the conversation going 24/7, not just for a couple hours each day. So, got that. It's called Man Cave Conversations. So, topics, polls, whatever. Maybe I want to give you guys some credit too for some of the topics that you bring to the table here. So, get you, and I might steal some of your ideas too. Let's be honest here. But if you want to join that group for ours, just let me know, and I'll send you the link over there because it is a private group. We want to keep this classy. Keep it classy, right, Luke?
Yep.
Keep it classy. So you can't
Thanks,
come.
San Diego.
Let's so if you want that link, I'll send it to you. Otherwise, it's up on our Facebook pages too. But just kind of, I know we got a couple topics from people up there that's going on right now, including a Packers win total is the one on there right now, I think. But yeah, just get some more stuff, give more credit to you guys for the podcast and on air and all that good stuff. Get a conversation going so all of you can kind of get to know each other too. So, but if you want that, text me and I'll send you the link. Otherwise, look it up on our Facebook page over there. So, yeah, I think you called it last week, but your Wild fired their coach.
Yep.
Got her done on Monday.
Yep.
What do you think of the new guy coming in, former Nashville Predators coach?
Hey, anytime you can replace a guy that has a run of several years of making the playoffs and not winning in the first round series with a guy that has had a couple runs with teams of several years making the playoffs and not getting out of the first round, I think you got to do it. The advantage John Hines has is his connection with the front office guys. He's, I think it's like the head scout for the Wild he worked with at one point in one of his stops. And then also Bill Guerin. I think it was one of the AHL stops that John Hines has had. So it's a little bit more of their guy, if you will. If that's again, the Wild aren't winning the Stanley Cup this year, but if it's a guy that they think they can, well, for one, get out of the funk, and they won a game last night. The streak's over. Cool. If this can happen longer, they can become a playoff team. And then again, as the cap situation, keep coming back to it, but that's the reality of it right now. The cap situation gets better after the next couple of years. And if Hines is still around, you know how long hockey coaches tend to last.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe then they've found something that all syncs together, and that line of how this is a parallel move is that's just the track record, but that doesn't mean what's coming forward. But yeah, they probably did need the new voice, even if it wasn't as obvious as when Mike Yeo had to go. Gosh, that Detroit loss was not good. And I know the Red Wings are way better this year. If we've gotten used to the Red Wings being putrid, they're not putrid anymore. But that wasn't a good loss the other day. And I wonder if this is the everything crystallized of Evason has lost the room, if you will.
Right.
Not that it's toxic or anything, but it's like it isn't clicking anymore. You got to do something. What was it was either a line or it was an assessment in a headline, like you can't trade all the players.
Right.
So what do you do? Well, I guess you have to.
Well, I mean, you could, but
well, technically. So yeah, I guess like I don't sense that Wild fans are super jacked about it, but I understand why. But if they win, cool. And if they don't, well, they're not in a great spot to win right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and it's still fairly early. Greg Wyshynski had a good story about how, like at Thanksgiving, supposedly that's usually a time you can tell. And he said this year, probably not, based on the standings, that there are a lot of teams that are out of it that probably will get into it based on the dynamic of the season of the Wild. Or in fact, he actually led the story like about 3 days ago with a quote from Dean Nevison. Okay. But that's the thing. The Wild could turn around. The Oilers have looked horrible for being a legitimate Stanley Cup prospect. They're getting better since they fired their coach. I think the Kraken can still turn it around. They're another one that's underwhelmed this season, not to the degree of the Wild, but I think they can. So there are some teams up at the top that are going to stay. They're like your Vegases. But I think you could see some turnaround. Maybe from the Wild, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
how jacked are you over the Kraken right now?
It's a little. I was talking about it the other day here. A little subpar. It's a little disappointing to not see them come out fast here at this point. But you know what? I'll go with the typical coach GM speak. A lot of ball game left. A lot of ball game left right now.
Speaking of a lot of ball game left, what's your assessment of Wolves in the Premier League?
Yeah, solid.
Coach speak.
Yep.
Where are they at? What's their table? I got it in front of me right now, so I know the answer.
Yeah, I've been. You know what? I'm letting it play out right now. I'm letting it play out.
Nice
So,
cliched answer.
yeah.
For the people listening at home, they're tied for 12th.
Okay.
They're not in the relegation zone, and I don't think they're anywhere close to that.
Mm-hmm.
But
we'll get there.
You're holding on.
We'll get there. So
yeah, I'll wave down from the top. My Aston Villa currently qualifying for the Champions League if the season ended today. Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. Ooh, I got a Packers Immaculate Grid.
Whoa!
Not all Packers, but Packers are on there. So,
okay.
Former Eagle that played, or player that played for the Eagles and Packers. Got to go with the less obvious ones on this one. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got Dorsey, you got Freeman's on there. Reggie White's going to be the popular one on there. Ooh, Doug Peterson.
Good one.
Ty Detmer.
Whoa.
You know.
Was Anthony Dilwig on both of them?
Ooh, that would be a good one. I don't know.
You
have to think about that. No, because you only get like one.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Packers Cowboys on there. You could do a little Herb Adderley. You could do a little George Teague on that one.
No, he didn't. Anthony Dilwig did not play for both. No.
Dolphins Packers. Could do a little Vince Beagle.
Ooh.
More recent one over there. Keith Jackson. Vinny Holiday. Or Vonnie Holiday, excuse me. Yeah. All right. I'll have to think about these ones for a little bit.
A lot of good choices there.
Got to get the low ones, though. The low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
Feel like I'm missing some obvious ones that I should know.
Did Mark Duper or Mark Clayton play for the Packers?
I don't think Clayton did. I don't think so.
I feel like, again, it feels like one of the two did. Okay, not Duper, but did Mark Clayton?
I think you're thinking of
yes, he did.
Is that Mark Clayton or Michael Clayton?
Mark Clayton.
Okay.
Yep.
Same one?
Same one from the Duper Clayton era, the mid-'80s. Mark Clayton, former Green Bay Packer.
Oh, yeah, 1 year, 93.
Uh-huh. Gosh, I can't believe I pulled that out of my memory. Wow.
That'd be a good one. You want me to type it in, see what it comes up as?
I bet a lot of people don't get that one.
Okay. Well, now a lot of people will because they'll put that in there if it's a good percentage. It is, let's see, Mark Clayton. What's your percentage on this one? 7%. Ooh, that's actually kind of high.
Yeah, a little higher than I would have thought.
Wow.
Low, but higher than low.
Interesting. I wonder who's really low on that. I'd love to know who's like got the lowest one on there. Huh. I thought you'd goal is you want to get like point something on there.
Right.
So
that gets really tough, but that's the point. You're supposed to think of something really obscure.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Eagles, really quick, because we got to take our final break. The 25 modern era finalists for the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Ricky Waters made it. First of all, I didn't know Ricky Waters hit 10,000 career rushing yards. I was actually impressed with that.
Ricky Running Waters?
Yep. Ricky Waters. Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not his first time, but I was like, wow, okay. Could he get it? And then I looked it up. I'm like, dude actually had that baseline. We always kind of look at the 10K. 10,000 career rushing yards. I was surprised there a little bit.
I wonder if he's in. Well, I mean, he's been a semifinalist a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Several times over. There's a lot of people that have been semifinalists in this batch, though. So
I think you got 2 first ballot Hall of Famers in there.
He feels like another Veterans Committee potential. He could get in before then.
Yeah. Julius and I think Antonio will get in first ballot. So,
does Frank Gore or Ricky Waters get in quicker?
Frank Gore.
Okay. Yeah.
To rehash that one.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you're right on that one. So let's see. I know we got to take a break. So Green Bay Packers to get in would be Jari Evans,
the greats guard for a year.
Yep. Julius Peppers.
Hey, your Mark Clayton pick went down to 6%.
Whoa. Yeah. Cool. This is trending the right way. So you got 2 potentials for the Packers among the modern era. I mean,
they're not going in as Packers. They're not putting Pepper's name up on the facade.
Well, at least yeah, that's true. But at least this isn't the whole cap thing. I mean, you can make a bit more of a claim because of the way the busts are done, unless it's very obvious and like a trim around it or a hairstyle that was from a particular
By the way,
era.
see Andre Dawson wants his hat changed.
Really?
Yeah, he wants it changed to the Cubs.
What is it? Is it as an expo?
Yeah.
Oh, Well, I'm pretty sure that they decided a few years ago that it's not the player's choice anymore.
Yeah, he said something about wants to right a wrong.
Okay, well, we'll see if the Hall of Fame folks agree with him,
Mhm.
and they may not. And if they're like, no, we remember you as an Expo. That's a tougher one for me because most of Andre Dawson's career, as I was following baseball, was as a Cub. But historic assessment, I think he's an Expo.
Yeah.
But I think we're kind of, honestly, should we have the Caps have those logos on them anyway? I mean, if we're talking about the player, and this is, I do kind of think it's a kind of a stupid argument when you really think about it.
Yeah, because here's my thing. What if Ohtani goes to like the Giants and has a really good few years? You're just going to ignore completely what he did with the Angels?
Yeah. Does he win a championship with the Giants, but with lesser numbers?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, there's some of these. Yeah, I don't like these. I mean, they can be fun debates, but then you're like, okay, but what actually is history going to say? So I like how the NFL does it. I like how a lot of the other ones do it where there's not an obvious identifier.
Right.
But this wasn't a problem for a long time because players played with one team. Well, then came the free agency era. And now we've had issues, and that's why we've had to have the committee say, no, we're deciding for you.
Yeah. I did the last two here for Packers, Cowboys, and Packers, Eagles. I got lower percent. I would have thought mine were higher percentages than yours. Really? Marco Rivera was a 1%. Packers, Cowboys. And I just plugged in Freeman just for whatever. He was a 2%.
Wow.
So there you go.
Wow.
I was actually a little surprised on that. I thought now they could get higher as the day goes, but
that's still a pretty low start.
Yeah.
Because of other players that stand out.
This is where I wish after you could put it, like you can just like, all right, let's see what the lowest ones were. You have to fill out the rest of it. So.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. So
I don't have time for that.
Nope. We got to take a break, and then we'll wrap up things after these quick words. I did think of one more Packer and Dolphin. And I tried it on my phone because it's a different link. Otherwise, you can't do it on the same device.
Yeah.
I did get a 2%.
Who was it?
The great Sam Congato.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Legendary Sam Congato. That's the names you got to try to remember back in your past.
I obviously would never go to Lambeau wearing
Sam.
a Packer jersey just on principle, but if I did, it would be with the Sam Congato jersey.
Sam Congato, baby.
No question.
I totally forgot about it. I was like, just all of a sudden, I'm like, oh yeah, Sam Con. Typed it in,
Congato.
2%.
Nice.
2%. So it's got to be somebody lower on there. Got to be.
Is he in the running of top 10 Packer folk heroes of this century?
Probably. Him, John Kuhn.
Jeff Janis is like number one.
I think his shine has worn off a little bit.
It has, but at the time, I mean, come on. It was.
I think Gatto's above Jeff Janis.
He might have more staying power.
We might have to do a podcast episode on that. The top 10 Packer folk heroes.
And I suppose you could extend it further back.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. I have to imagine Chester Markle was in the discussion after the field goal. Stuff like that.
Yep. I mean, see, no, like when it gets to, because I know one player that's a lot of people are going to say, and I don't put him under, because I think when I think of folk hero, I don't necessarily think that they were like the best player. You know what I mean?
Right. Like that's the thing. These have to be guys that.
Like Donald Driver is going to be a popular pick, but I don't consider him a folk hero.
I mean, Brett Favre could be because he's so relatable. You know,
Right.
Well, no, but that's the point. These are guys that had a moment or two or three. And
Like a
that's it.
game or two, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Travis
Those-
Jervey's got to be on there. I'm just saying. I mean, when you own a lion or a tiger or whatever it was, oh yeah, Travis Jervey, put him on there. He's
Right.
on my top 10 for sure.
Yeah. I would love to hear the results of that one.
I think I might have to do that.
All-time Packer folk heroes.
Yep.
Nice.
Top
By the
10.
way, who do you got from the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee that votes Sunday night for Hall of Fame?
Is that something? That's the sort of thing. I had no idea.
And again, it's a committee. So we got Cito Gaston, David Johnson, Jim Leland, Ed Montague, Hank Peters, Lou Piniella, Joe West, Bill White.
Get Jim Leland in there.
75% threshold to get in.
Mm-hmm. Come on, get him in. Of all the, I would go Jim Leland.
I think Leland. I've heard good things about Cito Gaston.
Mhm.
That, I mean, in terms of getting into this particular one, that his rep is so high that might be enough to get him in on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I could see Bill White getting in as an executive.
I
Maybe-
just love
Maybe
Jim
Joe
Leland.
West. Maybe.
Joe West. Can you imagine? The umpire, right? Joe West. Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Jim Leland would be of all of those. Yeah, I think Leland jumps out at me as the one who's done the most. But some of those other names I mentioned, I would think be worthy. I mean, they're all worthy to some degree, but those would be the most.
You know what? I'm going to post in our new group nominations for the Packers folk hero.
I like that. Yes. Let's
Yes.
see what the people say.
So if you want to join that up, you better do it and partake in it.
What do the folks say about their folk hero? That's it. This is a populist thing. Who do you like
that.
from the Packers?
Yes. And it can't be the drivers, the Favres, and all that.
Yeah.
Can't be.
Who's your guy? You'd buy a jersey if you could, or have it made up, something like
My buddy Jake bought a Travis jersey off the back of somebody at Sheenan's when we were in college.
that. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Folk hero.
John Jerkovich jerseys all across the place, too.
Nice.
That, too. That's what we're talking about.
Nice.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning. Talk to you then.